Racism. There's an article that just came out that talks about how therapists they're not necessarily prepared for dealing with racism when they have African American clients. We've got to talk about that. So we're going to look at stress, compassion, fatigue. We're joined today by licensed professional counselor Dr. LaKlieshia Izzard, and we've got lots to talk about today. We're going to look at some trending topics, research to dish, and of course my weekly balance challenge. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Light Exchange.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When it comes to saving money, don't act like a baby.
Goo goo gaga.
Be the boss and make a budget.
I'm the boss, baby.
You're not the boss of me.
I am the boss of you.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Need a little help?
Aren't you going to do any work?
I'm very busy delegating.
Create a personalized savings plan.
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
And get other tools and tips at feedthepig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Coming to Tampa Bay, I said we want to win a Super Bowl, and I believe we will.
From IamSecond.com.
We came close, but never really did win that championship.
Former NFL head coach Tony Dungy.
At the end of my 6th year, I was fired, and it was one of the biggest disappointments of my life. Next year, I'm in Indianapolis, get to the playoffs, but get knocked out again. And for the next couple of years, it's the same thing. Everyone is saying Colts are never going to win one. And I did wonder, why didn't it pan out the way I thought it would? But I determined that I had to have Christ first, and that everything else came below that, including my own desires. The next year, that ended up being our year to go to the Super Bowl and win it. And it was a wonderful feeling. Every decision I make, I'm going to make it through the lens of Jesus Christ. And he guides us to that ultimate victory. I'm Tony Dungy, and I am second.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You use Tearless Baby Shampoo because it's gentle on your baby's eyes. You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You always test the bathwater to make sure it's not too hot. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You make sure she wears a helmet when she rides her bicycle. You put on his sunscreen, even when he's embarrassed his friends will see. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Is your child facing the right way in the car seat? Is the seat too big or too small? How do you know when it's time to move your child into the next type of seat? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. That's safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
Finding best potatoes for French fries.
No!
Russet, fingerling, Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Brought to you by understood.org and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and our guest is here joining me today in the studio. I'm going to introduce Dr. LaKlieshia Izzard. She is the owner of Shekinah Counseling, providing services in counseling, training, supervision, and career consulting. Dr. Izzard is a licensed counselor, licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor, approved clinical supervisor, and TRICARE mental health counselor. Dr. Izzard has over 12 years of community health and substance addiction counseling experience with diverse populations. She's also an author. She's authored Positive People Pray and Faith Inspiration Therapy to meet the needs of those seeking a faith-based approach to mental and emotional healing. In addition to her experience as a counselor and author, she is an affiliate professor at Ohio Christian University. Dr. Izzard obtained her doctorate degree in counselor education and supervision from Argosy University, Sarasota, and Masters of Science in Mental Health Counseling from North Carolina A&T State University. Welcome. Yes, you kind of impressed yourself, huh? Like, wow, that's not bad. Welcome. So for the record, what do you prefer to be called? I know people ask me all the time.
I usually go by Dr. Izzy.
Dr. Izzy, I like it. See, this is why we ask. I like it. So, welcome and thank you for joining us. I wanted to just start with a couple of quick definitions, and I know we're diving right into the meat of it, but there's, we use the word stress and burnout and compassion fatigue all the time, but it would be good to start with some definitions of what those actually mean.
Right. Well, compassion fatigue is usually the term that some individuals recognize and some individuals don't. So in a mental health field, we use it quite a bit, and we use it as it relates to clients, not necessarily, but the actual staff person. So the actual counselor, the actual social worker, or whomever this professional is experiencing compassion fatigue related to a lack of empathy toward those individuals that they are working with. Now, compassion fatigue usually happens as a result of burnout. And burnout is stress over time.
Okay.
So that's kind of the differentiation, if you can kind of, get me from that aspect. So after you've been through chronic stress over a period of time, then that can turn into burnout.
Right.
And then burnout as a result can lead to compassion fatigue.
Got it. Okay, so you said lack of empathy. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So compassion fatigue comes from lack of empathy?
Yes.
I thought it was a tremendous amount of empathy that causes somebody to. That's interesting.
Once they reach the level of compassion fatigue, there is a lack of empathy that is there at that point. And actually, that individual, we would consider at that time not being in a position to be able to provide care.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to delve into that a little bit more because that's really new information for me. But first, we're going to get into trending topics.
Trending topics.
All right, so trending, and it's been all over social media all week, and we've had differing opinions. I've been processing it for a while, and I can kind of see both sides, but this is about Monique, comedian. So Monique, legendary comedian, actress, and Academy Award winner, is calling out Netflix for allegedly offering her $500,000 for a stand-up comedy special while offering millions to Amy Schumer, Dave Chappelle, and Chris Rock. In a tweet, Monique called for a boycott of Netflix on the rounds of color and gender bias. And so the question that people have been really grappling with is, does she make a valid point, or is she just kind of calling attention to herself unjustifiably, So, and so my first impression, the first time I saw the post, it's interesting how the way that a post is spun,
right,
kind of dictates how people respond to it, So I have seen posts that have said that, in favor of her, this is, I don't care if you guys like her or not, this is an issue of sexism in Hollywood that just needs to be addressed. And people are like, yeah, absolutely. And then I hear the other side of, who is she talking about? She's not anywhere near those other comedians. She need to go sit down somewhere. And then everybody's like, yeah.
Indeed.
So we have mob appeal kind of going on.
Gotcha.
But there are definitely two different sides to the argument, and where I fall on this is I do think that there's definitely a sexism, racism, colorism issue that's happening in Hollywood.
Gotcha.
That can't be denied. But the other piece of it is whether or not, I question whether or not her tactics are going to be fruitful, her approach, because she has been renowned for burning bridges.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey, Lee Daniels, Tyler Perry, now Netflix. I don't know that burning bridges is going to be the way to do it, but I think that she has some valid points from the larger standpoint. So, all right, so that's what's trending. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
JBT 700 Miami Circle 30324. It's not a chain, it's a chain reaction. Invest $49 a month at a real gym. For more info, go to facebook.com/Jeans Body Tech.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Oh, long time no see. It's me, the rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's time for that feel-good music. Feel good music. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about.
Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and joining me today is Dr. Izzy, and we are talking about stress, compassion, fatigue. I can tone it down a little bit.
We can feel the relaxation.
Yes, feel it. And the burnout. If you're feeling burnout right now, just sit with yourself for a second.
Take some deep breaths.
Inhale. And then exhale. Yes. Oh, I'm loving this music.
Love it.
It's so appropriate right now. So we are talking about burnout, compassion, fatigue, and stress. And right before the break, we were talking a little bit about what's going on with Monique and just the way that she has expressed her frustration and disdain over Netflix and reaching out to her only to offer $500,000 for her, you know. Yeah. What kind of things have you heard in these conversations?
Only heard just a little, like you said, kind of looking at her history overall and having issues in the industry with these major individuals who we would think could assist her in becoming even more successful. So pretty much like you said, just the overall pattern.
Right.
And wondering if this is maybe just another part of that pattern.
Right. So I
Counselor
was going to ask you from a counselor standpoint, and there it is, the patterns. What are the patterns? Because that was my next question, you know, from a counselor standpoint, if she was sitting in her chair, which is probably not the easiest question to ask because there's all kinds of other things that you'd need to know. But if somebody with that personality type sitting in your chair, what kinds of things, you know, would come off as a red flag, and not to say that there aren't some valid points, sexism, racism, valid points. How do you address somebody with that kind of personality on the backdrop of dealing with racism and sexism at the same time?
Right. And again, from that counselor standpoint, again, we want to always still keep the focus on that individual. Because many times what we find is individuals will drift off and want to play the blame game and talk a lot about what's been done to them.
Right.
Or they may have a victim-based mentality. And so when you recognize things like that, you keep the focus on them. You talk about their specific behaviors. And then you talk about, well, how are you addressing, how are you responding to these things that have happened to you? And then how have you responded over time? And then what has been the payoff or what has been the benefit to you?
Good question.
So
what has been the pay off in strategies that you repeat. Right, absolutely. I think that's a good question. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people have been turned off to the message.
Right.
They've missed the entire message because they are so distracted by the approach and by the patterns, as you say, that have not really yielded positive results.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Indeed.
So, great. I love it. Great observation.
You're going to pick my brain today.
I know. I love it. I get to pick brains. I don't have to think so much. It's wonderful. So, one of the things that you said early on, when you defined compassion fatigue, and you know, and if you wouldn't mind just giving us an overview of what that is again, you also mentioned how that leads to a lack of empathy, which I have to admit that was surprising to me. I thought, wow, you know, I only associated it with the beginning part where you're just kind of compelled with their situation. But I would love to hear about how that cycles into.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that, I had a colleague who had been in the mental health field for quite some time, mental health and substance abuse, was doing pretty well in that field and just got to a place of high levels of stress. And sometimes we can get to a place of high levels of stress because we just don't know how to cope with stress. And even as a licensed counselor, we can be taught these skills and these techniques, but many times when we're so focused on healing and we're so focused on helping other people, we tend to forget about ourselves. And so what happened to that individual, she was not taking good care of herself over time. And so then she started to experience signs and symptoms of burnout, which of course can be physical symptoms, headache, even irritable bowel syndrome, different things like that of that nature.
We're going to come back to that.
Yes, back and forth, in and out of the hospital. And so she already had reached burnout, and then she fell on into compassion fatigue. And so one of the examples that I use this in all of my trainings, and you can laugh when I say it because it is funny, but it's also serious on the other hand. So we were in the office one day and we were all just talking, and this is an area that's secluded, but it's also an area where clients come back to. And so they're usually somewhere lurking around in that area.
Okay.
And so she was so stressed this particular day that she just yelled out in the office, "Why do I always get all of the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? You know, what is really going on? What is really, I don't want any more cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs." And this is a licensed professional counselor who had been in the field for a while, loved what she was doing, but as a result of stress, burnout, she ended up falling over into compassion fatigue. And so at that point, she was at a level where she could not assist or help anyone, and she was not at a level of having empathy for anyone at that particular time.
That makes sense. So fatigue from being compassionate. You can't be compassionate anymore. It's gone. That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Indeed. And so I remember seeing this in her and wanted to kind of just step out and talk to her. And when I did, she was just heartbroken, just tears all over the place.
Wow. That is good. Okay, not good, but you know what I'm saying. The information is good. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the Live Exchange.
Vince Lombardi once said that it's hard to be aggressive when you're confused. Some of us think that taking our lives to the next level, both personally and professionally, is a confusing and complicated process. Guess what? It's not, and I can prove it. My book, Truisms, will show you how living your life by rules that are so self-evident and obvious, you'll say, I knew that. This powerful yet short, detailed bestseller is on sale right now, under $10. Go to michaelmcfadden.com. That's michaelmcfadden.com, and let Truisms help you to the next level.
Marie Callender's knows that you may not have time to roll out dough for a perfectly flaky crust that's made from scratch, or enough time to mix vegetables with all white meat chicken and a homemade gravy. She knows you may not have a moment to crimp the edges of your favorite chicken pot pie, but Marie Callender's does. And when she's done, all you need to do is find time to grab someone special, sit down, and savor. Marie Callender's. It's time to say.
Our freedom and security are made possible through the service and sacrifice of our military and first responders. The Gary Sinise Foundation provides many outreach programs supporting these brave men and women. Join us. Donate at GarySiniseFoundation.org.
If you're looking for that ratchet,
You're in the wrong place. It's the nation's urban internet station, Sensation Station Network.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and I'm joined here with Dr. Izzy, who's a licensed professional counselor. And we were talking about compassion fatigue, and, you know, one of the things that, you know, she gave an example of one of her colleagues where, you know, that kind of experienced that. But two questions. You know, first of all, how do you know before anybody else sits you down that you're getting to that point? And then what do you do, you know, when you get there?
Well, I think the major thing that we have to consider is looking at those signs. Mm-hmm. The signs are always there. And so if you know that you're having signs of stress, you know, number one, some of the physical signs related to stress are, you know, just pretty much exhaustion, mm-hmm. you know, very, very tired. You know that you're working nonstop. You're not really getting any rest. And so these are some of the first cues that we need to start picking up on.
Right.
And so, of course, if that's going on over time, you're going to have some issues related to your physical health, more than likely. So that's another sign.
Yes.
And then you're going to have some issues related to emotional, as well as, you know, how are you coping emotionally with things, such as people become very irritable. Mm-hmm. People sometimes displace their anger. They become very snappy. Yeah. So different things like that are cues, signs for us to pick up on that we're stressed.
But it seems like by the time you get to that point, you're already kind of a hot mess. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so how do you prevent yourself from getting
to that place?
Down?
And how we prevent ourselves is taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, self-care. Yeah. So eating
Yes.
healthy, exercising,
right.
Making sure that we're taking time to build ourselves up, so inspiring ourselves, whether that's through positive reading, mm-hmm. whether that's going to certain seminars, certain symposiums, people who are faith-based, attending church, Bible study, different things like that, mm-hmm. keeping yourself uplifted and keeping yourself in a good, positive space.
Right.
And so doing those things on a daily basis can keep you from getting to that place of experiencing those signs of stress, which then will eventually can lead to burnout and then the compassion fatigue piece. Okay. So self-care,
right.
A lot of self-care every day.
Yes, every day. Yes, do not cease. One of the things that that comes to mind is that compassion fatigue, I would think, mm-hmm. isn't just something that impacts helping professionals.
Right.
And so one of the things I'd like to talk about, we're going to go into the research first, but one of the things I'd like to talk about is how it can impact us just on an everyday basis, living our lives, not serving people professionally, but mm-hmm. just our families, our friends, everyday situations that we deal with. But first, we're going to go into the research.
In the interest of science,
This research today is based on an article that I've seen kind of floating around Facebook. It was published in thinkprogress.org. And by the way, this research is brought to you by Red Door Consulting. Red Door Consulting is a boutique management firm that prides itself as an innovative leader in image consulting and image development. So if you want to rework your image at all, or if you want to, you know, whatever you want to do with your image, contact Tarshish Jordan from Red Door Consulting. She will help upgrade you and your business today. So go to reddoorconsulting8.com. reddoorconsulting8.com. This is also brought to you by BBLA Cosmetics, who kind of are responsible for the look on my face today. Thank you, BBLA. You guys always hook me up. So the research is looking at African Americans. Black Americans suffer most from racial trauma, but few counselors are trained to treat it. Very interesting study that comes out of the Auburn University at Montgomery by Carrie Hemmings, and basically this was published in the Journal of Multicultural Counseling and Development, and she found that the majority of counselors in the United States are not prepared to identify and treat race-based trauma, which often results from racial harassment, discrimination, violence, I would add microaggressions. And in addition to this lack of preparation, the study highlighted existing research pointing to a general shortage of professional training opportunities for understanding and treating race-based trauma. Sounds like an opportunity to develop some CEU courses. Huh.
Now, when I listened to you reviewing that research, I think I understand where they're coming from as it relates to, like you said, the piece of the continuing ed piece.
Right.
And maybe not having a specific course that's identified to that. But I would definitely not say that we're not trying to address it.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because we are really focused on multiculturalism and being competent as it relates to dealing with diverse populations.
Would you say as a field you are, or are there individuals who specialize in that particular
We do have individuals that specialize in it, but as a field, they do push multiculturalism and diversity a lot.
Wow.
And I am a member and sit on the executive board for the American Counseling Association here in the state of Georgia. And so I know that that is something that we're even working towards. And we talk a lot about making sure that individuals are understanding diverse populations and what we can do to better gain knowledge, learn more skills to address these different types of issues, even more issues that we're seeing coming up even now in our society.
Yeah, and they are coming to the surface,
Yes.
more so than in the past.
Yes.
Well, so just to give you an idea of how the study was conducted, of the 106 counselors surveyed in the study, 75 reported that they had worked with clients who experienced some form of race-based trauma. Only 35% of participants said that they had received training to identify race-based trauma, and 20% reported that, and 20, not 20%, 20 reported that they had received race-based trauma. So I think this study, and as many studies do, specifically focus on one area. So while there may be multiculturalism, what this study is saying now, it is 106 counselors.
Right.
They are saying specifically dealing with race-based trauma, which, it is a specialized area. But I think the argument that this article is making, which I'll just say here, is that African Americans endure more mental problems as a result of overt racism, discrimination, and microaggressions, which are subtle degradations of marginalized people. And so I think they're calling for let's add this to the
see
specific,
more of it. Let's
the
see more
specific
of
area. Because it's something that has been such a problem over the years. I don't know, since the beginning of the country. But
it's been a problem.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's more so now, I think, recently being
boiling
focused on a little bit more. I teach diversity in counseling as well, and that is an area that we did discuss about, which is microaggressions.
Yeah.
And African American males actually receive more microaggressions than any other population, any other minority population.
Well, we're going to go to break, and what I would love to talk about is how race-based trauma impacts our lives, our love, our self, how we perceive ourselves, and
self-identity.
So we're gonna dig into that a little bit when we come back. Stay with us on the Live Exchange.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool, and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When it comes to saving money, don't act like a baby.
Goo goo gaga.
Be the boss and make a budget.
I'm the boss, baby.
You're the boss of me.
I am the boss of you.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Need a little help?
Aren't you going to do any work?
I'm very busy delegating.
Create a personalized savings plan.
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
And get other tools and tips at feedthepig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Oh, long time no see. It's me, the rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to the live exchange. They don't have me in here singing. You and I too. Okay. All right, this is Dr. Pamela, joined by Dr. Izzy, who is a licensed professional counselor, and we're talking about compassion, fatigue, burnout, and stress. So one of the things that we were just looking at is a study that says, and I agree, we need to be really specific about what we're talking about, because we're not saying that counselors aren't getting multicultural training and diversity training. This article actually pinpoints one particular area of that, which is a really important area of race-based trauma and how race-based trauma impacts African Americans. And it's focused on African Americans because the study found that this is the most impacted culture in America with regards to racism. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I have is looking at, and this is just my anecdotal observation, but it just seems that race-based trauma would have an impact on areas of our lives, like our self-perception, how we see ourselves, our relationships, and it could be our intimate relationships, it could be our relationships with our mother, our family, siblings, and then as well as just how we go about our lives, how we navigate our lives on an everyday basis, when we're driving, when we're at work. So can you talk a little bit about how race-based trauma impacts us in those different areas?
Correct. Yes, and I know exactly what you're speaking about, Dr. Pamela. I was at a actual counseling conference last year, and there was a continuing it on microaggressions with African American males. And it was amazing because the exercise that he did, he had each African American male to write down at least 2 microaggressions that they can recall that they've constantly heard over their lifetime. And he allowed them to stand at the front of the room, and he allowed the others to go by and walk and look at these actual comments that they wrote.
Wow, that's powerful.
And some of the comments were so devastating to me, but I could tell just looking at some of those comments that those were things that they had internalized. And when we internalize things, of course, it impacts our relationships, it impacts our self-esteem, it impacts how we look at life. It impacts our worldview. And so for African American males, it really caused some serious issues in causing them to have some setbacks in some different areas in their life.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about worldview when you get back. Because, if you imagine putting glasses over your eyes and how that impacts your worldview, that's pretty much what this is. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents multiple choice parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
From the University of Alabama, the Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl, then prison. The remarkable story of Sherman Williams that you must read to believe. Crimson Cowboy, Peace Between the Lines, is the incredible journey of an NFL star continued road to redemption. You must get this book now at crimsoncowboy.com. crimsoncowboy.com.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
And so a new American industry has been born.
Sensation Station Network.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, joined by Dr. Izzy, who is giving us some insights on the impact, really, of microaggressions. And, you know, you were talking about a particular situation where black men were asked to speak about their microaggressions. Let's back up just a couple of steps to tell people who may not know what microaggressions are.
Exactly. Microaggressions are comments that are usually made by individuals of a different race to a minority race, usually that are not necessarily
Or
nice,
genders.
yeah, and not necessarily nice comments. Now, whether or not they may perceive them as compliments or nice comments, they're more of attacking base or more of demeaning type comments that are made.
And they really are comments or even gestures that basically say you're different than you know the regular person. You know, and that in itself is a you know a problematic line of thinking. But and I like that you pointed out that it could be something where somebody thinks it's a compliment, but it's you speak so well. Why are you surprised that I speak so well? Microaggression, you know. And as I said during the break, it's not one of those things you can go to your boss and say, well, you know, such and such said I speak well, and I feel microaggressed. You know, they're not. You know, 9 times out of 10. They're not going to get it. So what you were saying earlier about how, you know, so using the example of black men, you know, dealing with microaggressions in the workplace and different places, and you said it comes out, it impacts relationships. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Hearing and listening to microaggressions over time, I do think that that individual, that specific black male, will internalize that. And once they internalize it, it becomes somewhat a part of their identity, who they are. And so it's then going to come out in their relationships. It's going to come out in their anger. It's going to come out in their aggression. It's just going to come out in how they see the world as a whole, which is their world view.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back.
If you're a single man under the age of 35, you'd probably like to know what the ladies are looking for on an online dating site. A guy who had a few drinks and later got pulled over for buzzed driving. See, that could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And doesn't a guy who's back living with his parents but calls them my roommates just scream Mr. Right?
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the app.
Major key alert. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at GetSchooled.com. Brought to you by Get Schooled and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela. So just before the break, you were talking about the different ways that microaggressions can impact, and we were talking specifically about black males, but this is going to apply also to anybody who's dealing with microaggressions. And so I definitely can understand it from a woman's point of view of how we internalize those things, and we have to be very careful about. I mean, we can't control how it comes out if we don't even know it's there and we don't know that impact, happens. Right. One of the other interesting points that came out of this article is that not only are people of color disproportionately affected by race-based trauma, they rarely seek counseling. Is that accurate from your standpoint?
Well, and again, I can pretty much understand the research from that standpoint, just looking at African-American culture as a whole. There is still some stigma there that is related to mental health treatment and to therapy. I think we've come a long way, and we're doing much better with it. But again, with certain issues, I think there's still some stigma. So definitely looking at racism, looking at microaggressions, I do think that would still be an area that our culture probably would be hesitant about receiving treatment. And again, that could possibly be that they may get connected with a therapist that they may think may not understand it.
Right. And that's important. That relationship is going to be key, and those first impressions. Fullwood Jr. is saying here, he's following us on Facebook Live, and he says, even in church, we have preachers who tell the congregation to seek Jesus instead of therapy. Yeah. When somebody can actually do both. They can seek Jesus and therapy. And then he adds, we tend to have a negative view of therapy in our community.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think that's something we're working on as a culture in the black church. Yeah. There are many churches here in Atlanta who are incorporating now support groups who celebrate recovery, all of these different things now to push focusing on getting some type of therapy, some type of treatment. But then again, you may have some individuals that would focus on just receiving that support from the black church and then not seeking the professional help. But I think we are trying to move toward that, even though it's still been some hesitancy there.
Yeah, and I know of some churches that have incorporated therapists in the church so that they have both that spiritual, you have both of those aspects. And I think it's helpful because, there was a video going viral again with a black woman in church at testimony service, and she was talking about how she did all these things on the street and just engaged in prostitution, and it turned into this laughing thing. And I had a hard time laughing at it, but I did see a conversation in the Black Therapist group on Facebook. If you're a therapist, you might want to get a part of that. Yeah. And somebody brought up a really good conversation that I think that this is a case where this woman could have been connected with a therapist in the church.
That's right.
And, because we don't know what happened after that particular episode. Exactly. So, but we have to, what are we on, the balance challenge? I saw the cue, but I don't remember what it was. So, yes, it's the balance challenge.
Keeping your balance with Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela.
All right. So this week's balance challenge is I want you guys This is one of the things I wrote about in my book, and we got to talk about Dr. Izzy's book as well. My book is Letters to the Brokenhearted, and one of the things that I want people to learn how to do as they come out of relationships and start to rebuild their lives, and this is what I had suggested, but I now suggest this for everybody, to be able to say yes to the things that you want and no to the things that you don't want.
Right. Love it.
Use that voice, and I want you this week to make it a particular, like, intentional thing to say yes to what you want. If somebody asks you to do something and you kind of want to do it, but you feel a little guilty because, well, you know, I got to take care of the kids, say yes and figure out the kids. I want you to be able to say yes to yourself this week. And just, you may not be able to do it all the time, but make it a point to do it this week just so you can get used to or experience what it feels like to say yes to what you want.
Right.
And then to say no to what you don't want. No, I'm good.
Boundary setting
Yes.
is what we call it.
Yes, boundary setting. So that's my challenge for you this week. I want you to say yes to what you want and no to what you don't want. Sounds easy, right? Why do people struggle with that?
Ooh, boundaries is something that many people struggle with, and I think it's because we don't have a foundation many times, of course, in being reared as a child. I didn't learn about boundaries until I was in my master's program.
Yeah, wow.
And so many people just don't understand that personal boundaries are so significant because they help to protect them, but they also help them to achieve and to go further in life.
Absolutely.
And so definitely, if you are not aware of what personal boundaries are, definitely research it and consider seeking out a professional that can teach you how to apply personal boundaries.
And I've done this with my professional life. So I have learned to, now, so here's the thing. When you work a job, you have to do tasks. You have responsibilities that you have to do, right? So in any instant that I'm able to choose those responsibilities that I actually enjoy, that reflect my strengths that I'm really good at, I choose those. And and when I choose those, it makes it easier to say no to the other things because I'm like, I already got this going on. So, and what I got going on is what I enjoy doing. So it's really important to be able to pay attention to what works for you and what doesn't, and to try to go in the direction.
Because when you don't, you do become overwhelmed.
Yes.
And when you become overwhelmed, then here comes the stress.
Yes.
And here comes the burnout. And then there comes compassion fatigue. So again, it's a pattern.
Right.
So start with boundaries and self-care. And that's what will help to prevent getting to the stress and all of those other things that follow.
That's really good. And we're going to get into self-care, but I have one last question that I want to ask about, kind of related to the study about trauma and dealing with, but bringing in the compassion fatigue part of that conversation with regards to race-based trauma. I'm wondering if, as you know, so we are a collective of different identities that come together into one community. So we have women, black women, we have black men, we have, you know, and then we have economic levels. And so every group gets to point at another group and say, well, they don't have it as bad as I do. They don't have it. So, you know, we tend to do that to each other. And it's getting really bad. And the question I'm going to put on the table before we go to break is, have we developed So think about that. Chew on it. We're going to talk about it when we come back.
Great leaders aren't born. They're made, and not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and culture. Empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. So right before the break, I posed the question about whether or not we have developed compassion fatigue as it pertains to dealing with each other. So, and I don't even necessarily mean within the black community, because when we have #MeToo, And then you have a whole bunch of people saying, well, not as bad as me, you know, or when we have Black Lives Matter and we have the response, well, white lives matter too. You know, we have forgotten, or I don't even know if we ever knew, but we certainly don't, we lack empathy for each other. So I don't know. I just wonder, is
educators even, you know, in that environment. So I think it's something that we need to start talking more about.
Yeah.
And what ways that we can support one another and continue to support one another, and understanding that no one is out to take more from you, or no one is necessarily more discriminized against. And even if they are, does that mean that one culture or whatever is better than any other, or should have more than any other? So these are some topics I think that we definitely need to have a conversation about and start speaking more about, because it's definitely something that we witness on a daily basis.
I mean, based on your definition of compassion fatigue, you get to the point of burnout and exhaustion, to the point where you can no longer have empathy for the other person's experience. And that's just pervasive in our culture right now.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have love notes.
With Dr. Pamela.
All right, so today's love note is coming up. Well, I know what it says. I don't have the verbatim letter is not in front of me, but basically it is a letter asking about how to, oh, there it is, dear Dr. Pamela. It sounds great to say that set boundaries. You just said this. Set boundaries and take time to myself. But the reality of my life is that I have kids and people who depend on me. It is just not feasible for my life. It is actually frustrating when people talk to me about time and about me time and staycations. That's just not realistic for me, Corinne.
That is definitely a hard task sometimes to balance, but I do think that it can be done. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to take off and leave the children. If you remember, I spoke earlier about inspiration, reading inspirational things, taking care of your faith, exercise, different things that can benefit you to help you to understand more about boundary setting and how important boundary setting is. We know that responsibilities to children, responsibilities to a spouse is a lot. But again, if you do not take care of yourself, you will never be able to effectively take care of anyone else.
I think people fool themselves into thinking that they are effectively taking care of other people because they are day to day, just living day to day and making it work. Making it work is different than actually, thriving and doing,
And I always use this example in a lot of my trainings too as well. I had an amazing maternal grandmother, may she rest in peace. But all of my grandmother's life, she took care of other people. She raised her siblings. She raised her 7 children. She went around and adopted other people's children. She was actively involved in her church and in her community. And as a result, my grandmother's health suffered. And she left us at the age of 68 years old. And that comes from not setting boundaries and taking care of self.
Wow. Okay. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Text us with your shout-outs and requests to 678-613-58557. Radio, knock them down.
All right, welcome to the top of the second hour of the live exchange. My, we are, yes, we are getting a lot of ground covered, and well, let me tell you what we're talking about. We're talking about stress, burnout, and compassion fatigue, and I'm joined by Dr. Izzy, who is also an author of 2 books. Can you tell me what are those titles again?
I sure can. One is Faith, Inspiration, therapy, and the other is faith inspiration coping tools. The first helps counselors to effectively work with their clients using a cognitive behavioral therapy and faith-based integration treatment approach.
Right.
And the other is a self-application book where clients and other individuals, they can use these techniques for themselves right at home.
Nice.
And so it uses a cognitive behavioral therapy base, but I also integrate it with biblical principle and biblical scripture to help build that individual that has that strong faith foundation as well. Because again, we talked about before about our culture, African American culture, and how many of them may veer from therapy because the faith-based piece is left out or may not be seen as important. So I wanted to make sure that we had a treatment approach just for us.
I love it. I love it. That's great. So yeah, and your books are available
on Amazon.
There you go. Check her out on Amazon. So I one of the things that I had mentioned in the last session, it just occurred to me when she defined compassion fatigue, and I said, well, I wonder if that's part of what we're seeing in society with all of these dichotomous groups saying, well, me too, me too in a different way, or Black Lives Matter, no Black lives, don't matter, our lives, Fullwood had an interesting response to that. He says, I think calling it compassion fatigue is being nice.
Well, yeah.
I don't know that I can disagree with that. Some of us are selfish. Some of us are poor at being empathetic, and some of us are still subconsciously buy into ideas and philosophies of white supremacy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I agree. I mean, that can't be. We certainly can't deny.
Blame it all on that.
Yeah, we can't deny that. And I think that, another conversation that I saw happening in Black Therapist Rock was whether or not we want to pathologize racism and, give it, put it in the DSM as something. And a lot of them said, and I agree, said no, because it is a learned behavior.
It is.
And it's not something that,
it's very learned, like you said, learned behavior.
Right. And
so you can look at all the research and look at the studies and know that it is learned. And many times it just starts at such a very young age.
Yes. So
it's internalized.
From that standpoint, I completely agree with, okay, we don't want to just say, oh, it's compassion fatigue. But I do, there just seems to be some similarities between the behaviors, but I do think that in the cases in which racism is an underlying factor, that definitely cannot be denied. So I think it's an excellent
and it's
point.
just something that would need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Something that person would need to become aware of. Such as when we were talking about the microaggressions before. Some men, black men, don't even know that the microaggressions have affected them to that level.
Right.
But when you hear them speak or when you hear them respond about certain things, then you could hear the microaggressions within their conversations.
Right. And that's not necessarily the way that they're responding to it isn't because their dad said, well, you need to respond this way. It's I don't know. It's just it's the impact of being marginalized and being
that internalization
constantly questioned. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to get back to is the question from Corinne, who was saying that she, it's all well and good that you all are saying, to
about the boundaries.
Yeah, find boundaries and have me time and this and that. But and I hear this all the time. I just can't. So I don't know. And she actually said it's frustrating when people talk to her about taking time and taking staycations. And so you gave some ideas, some things that she could do without having to necessarily disrupt her schedule,
her routine.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about self-care when we come back. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, so 5 tacos of cheese and a large soda, that's $10,012. Please drive around.
Wait, 10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I am your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Okay, so 5 tacos of cheese and a large soda. That's $10,012. Please drive around.
Wait, 10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela. I am joined by Dr. Izzy, who is like educating me on all of this self-care stuff, compassion fatigue, and all of that. And I really wanted to help Corinne and other people like Corinne who are saying, yeah, it's all fine and good, but I got a busy life, you know, and I've heard people say, you know, I just got to suck it up till the kids are 18 and just, you know. And so the story that comes to mind is what you said about your grandmother who dedicated her whole life to
taking care of others.
Yes. And when she passed, I'm just wondering if people associated it with that, or if, you know, she was a good person.
It took a little while,
Yeah.
but my family now is definitely aware of that. My grandmother's funeral was so large that individuals were on the outside of the funeral. So that's just how many people she did impact in her short lifespan. But again, that self-care piece is so critical because as a result, she had several health-related issues.
Right.
So going back to the comment that the young lady stated about just not having time, then taking baby steps. And baby steps can simply be changing the diet for you and your family, healthy eating, so that you can build your immune system because our immune system fights for us. And so individuals now are understanding that a plant-based diet is more effective in helping us just to deal with life as a whole, giving us more energy. And so I like to say this little term in my trainings: greens, beans, berries, and seeds. Greens, beans, berries, and seeds. Because these are those foods that increase and build up our immune system. And they need to be a part of our daily diet. Every day you need to include greens, beans, berries, and seeds. So you can start there.
I hear a children's book coming out of that.
I know. So, I mean, you can take baby steps and start there. And as it relates to exercise, you may not be able to get out to the gym, but you can do a 20-minute video. Get on the mat, get on the floor, you know, do a few jumping jacks. Dance with the kids. Find creative ways to just live a more healthy life.
I think that's the key right there is creativity.
Yes.
And, you know, and I think, you know, one of the things that the coaching academy that we have, when we founded it, we talked about connecting creativity, or, well, the connection between creativity and intelligence. And that creativity fuels and enhances intelligence. And the more intelligent we are, the more creative we're able to be with, you know. And so that's why we see these geniuses that are, you know, that are out there, the yes. And so I think try. There are creative ways.
There
to make
are
it,
ways
and
to
it's
do
worth
it.
it.
It's so worth it.
You know,
so worth it because you're looking at your lifespan. You're looking at long life, and you were talking about creativity. And many times, creativity don't come out of individuals because they're not thinking clearly.
Yes.
So keeping the kids on a schedule too, that they're going to bed at a certain time at night, so then you have that quiet time, so
Right.
that you can start to develop your thinking.
Oh, that's the area I'm not so good in. Oh, I struggle with that, you know, getting to bed on time. But yes, no, that is because when it does happen, it's like, oh, quiet, you know. So yes, that's a good one. So we're going to get into trending topics.
Primary election. Lack of diversity. Gas prices.
Michael Jackson. Trending topics.
Okay, so trending, we've got, you know, a couple of things, but one thing that I wanted to bring up, because this particular comedian is based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Comic Steve Brown was heckled Sunday night at a comedy club because a disgruntled fan seemed to be gunning to kill him. So this is coming from TMZ. But you know, he was doing a set at the comedy club, and a guy didn't like what he had to say, and he jumped on the stage and basically took the mic stand and tried to hit him with it. And he actually, you know, he ducked out of the way. And then a few people of the club, you know, subdued the guy who was taken outside. And so it's just, you know, what is that? You know what
Exactly.
I mean? You go to a
What
comedy
do you
club,
do?
and you have to know that there are going to be some things that are said that you may not like.
Right.
But what makes a person go from I'm watching a comedy club to I'm on stage with the mic stand and I'm swinging it at you?
Again, I think it goes back to some of the things we were talking about before. What has this individual internalized? What is this individual's worldview? And then again, lack of coping skills.
Right.
Because many of us are going to be offended from time to time in our life, and we're going to hear things that don't make us happy. But do we become violent? Do we become aggressive?
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to what's been internalized and what's been taught to this individual to deal with life.
Yeah. Life, yeah. And I don't know
Life
what
shows
was
up.
said. And let's just say what was said was just absolutely heinous, and it was directly to him, and it was about his mama, and it was
No reason.
truth. You know, there's still not, that still doesn't warrant
Violence
that
is
kind of
not
response.
the answer.
Yeah.
And again, we
So-
just had MLK Day,
Yeah,
you know, what
yeah.
we focused on then, still hopefully talking about nonviolence.
Yeah.
But again, they even spoke about at that service or that ceremony that we're still pretty much in the same place we were when he was living.
Yeah.
It's so many things that we are still trying to address to this day.
Absolutely.
So.
It's funny because I recently heard a woman say that racism didn't become a problem until President Obama was brought into office. And so so it's, you know, so there's this perpetual denial
Yes.
that happens, and speaking of denial, you know, those are microaggressions.
Exactly.
And
That was.
there's another video going around on social media with it's a British news show, and there's a woman who is, I think she talks about being of mixed race, but she's definitely got some black in her. And the rest of the panel is white, and she says, you know, I deal with this on a daily basis on microaggressions, and they're like, it's all in your head, and you know that stuff is over with. And one statement was, if they didn't mean it to be racist, it's not racist, you know. And so it's that denial of one's experience that I think adds to the stress and the daily burden of, you got life, but now let me put these weights on your shoulders. You can deal with this too.
So
on
then
top of that.
it's where is the awareness?
Right.
Where's the awareness? And I remember when I was in that microaggression training, it was more African Americans than it was Caucasian Americans. And the speaker, he was biracial, you know.
We're going to have to cut you off and go to break.
Okay.
We'll be
That's
right
fine.
back.
Great leaders aren't born, they're made. And not just anywhere. They're made in special places by special qualified trainers in places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
1 in 7 Americans will struggle with addiction during their lifetime. Want to know how you can help? Go to heretolisten.com for tips and tools to help turn addiction around. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council.
Our freedom and security are made possible through the service and sacrifice of our military and first responders. The Gary Sinise Foundation provides many outreach programs supporting these brave men and women. Join us. Donate at GarySiniseFoundation.org.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and we were talking about just really how the impact of continuous microaggressions and when our experiences are, denied.
Right. And yeah, I was just saying before we went to break that this individual who was doing this training, he was stating how the lack of awareness and some individuals just ignoring the fact that microaggressions still exist. Mm-hmm. And so it was more African Americans in this particular training than it was Caucasian Americans. Yeah. And his, communication to the Caucasian Americans was not that we necessarily expect you to sympathize, but we do expect you to be empathic, but understanding that this is something that has happened over many, many years, mm-hmm. and it's something that is continuing to happen, and stand up and say something about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's I think many of us can appreciate that at the very minimum, just to listen. That's it. To hear it out, and so I see this happening with a lot of different. There's a community of Black males who want to speak out on how they have experienced sexual assault and abuse, even from Black women, and when we hear about that, we laugh and we think, you're punk or this and that.
That is very true.
I think we minimize people's experience more than than we may realize.
I would agree.
Yeah. So the other thing about the whole, so one thing I have to dispel here, and I talked about this on my live post before we got here. A lot of people, so I got sick a couple weeks ago. I got bronchitis, and I never get sick, ever. And so this one particular time I got sick, and when you get sick, everybody becomes a doctor, and everybody has a remedy, and everybody has a cause. And so, a lot of people, some people were in my inbox like, well, it's because you work so much, and and I always, can't help but laugh at that, and it's like, well, I have a job, and
yeah, you do.
And the job, but sometimes people just get sick because they
get sick
mm-hmm. because they touch something that somebody else touched and rub the eyes on it, and bam, you got the virus or the bacteria, whatever it is. So, I got so many messages about how you just need to slow down. You need to slow down, and I just thought if y'all knew what my life is really like behind the scenes, how flexible my life is, and how I get to work maybe 3 hours a day, y'all would be hating on me. So that's why I try to, I keep it quiet.
You're supposed to.
But work-life balance for me
is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's so needed.
Yeah. If I want to take a trip, I take a trip. If I want to take a week off, I take a week off. I do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get into the research, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I'm hoping that I'm not giving all my secrets now, but I'm hoping that maybe I can help some of y'all out with,
Yeah. I'll help them out too a little bit.
Yes, please do. So we're going to get into the research.
In the interest of science.
All right, so the research is brought to you by Beauty LA Cosmetics. That is Breathe Beauty LA. They are the cosmetic company that is responsible for responsible for the look on my face, a little tongue-tied today. Also brought to you by Write, Pitch, Publish. It is the Innovative Writers Conference where you can meet literary agents, get your manuscripts reviewed, learn from experts. It's coming April 7th to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Go to www.writepitchpublish.com for details. Check it out. It is a conference you don't want to miss. I'm talking about literary agents flying into New York just to read your manuscript. You miss out on that, you kind of crazy if you're a writer. All right, so this study is this information comes from the CDC, and this is it's fairly new to me in the last 4 or 5 months, but I'm very intrigued by this topic now that I know about it, and it's the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And one, I saw a TED Talk, her name is escaping me right now, but that's what kind of turned me on to this whole concept of ACEs and how adverse childhood experiences can impact our adulthood and our livelihood and our health. So childhood experiences, both positive and negative, have a tremendous impact on future violence, victimization, and perpetuation, lifelong health, and opportunity. As such, early experiences are an important public health issue. Much of the foundational research in this area has been referred to as adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. So these adverse childhood experiences have been linked to risky health behaviors, chronic health conditions, low life potential, and early death. So as the number of ACEs increases, so does the risk for these outcomes. And they don't have it listed here, but based on my understanding is ACEs, adverse childhood experiences can be a parent who is alcoholic, enduring the divorce of your parents, abuse. So things that have, all of these things can impact, and I know it sounds, like, oh, well, duh, common sense, but what they're saying, from the standpoint of this being a public health issue, is if we can get and, resolve those issues, address it, maybe not eliminate the adverse experience, but be able to address that experience. It's pretty much in the same way the other article talked about racial related trauma experiences. We can do a lot for how these individuals develop into adulthood and and even as adults.
Indeed. I do a lot of trainings for foster care and adoption agencies, and that's some of the things that I usually address in the trainings, because when we're looking at foster care children, many of them have suffered traumatic experiences, they've suffered abandonment, they've suffered neglect, and so what are some things that you can do as a foster parent to start working with this child and helping this child to move past, not necessarily forget, but how can they use those experiences?
Well, and to the point of the lenses that we talked about earlier, when we're talking about racial trauma, and it really impacts our worldview. And so the lenses that we put on, this is how we now see the world. And I think that ACEs can be, can have that same impact. One of the examples, the lady in the, and I'm so sorry that I don't have her name up right now, it brought up in that TED Talk was that, and she's a medical doctor, and what she was saying that therapists get it, but medical doctors need to get it, because when they're treating a child or they're treating somebody with different health issues, if they can understand how the connection between those health issues and their ACEs, it's going to make a difference. So she said there's a part of the brain that signals if a bear is coming, there's a bear coming, there's a bear coming, and and the stressors
like
are
fight or
triggered.
flight. You sure do.
Mode, and that is going to impact the lenses that you see life through.
That's it. Constant anxiety.
That was just powerful. All right, and I might post that TED Talk for you guys to see. We'll be right back.
From the University of Alabama, the Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl, then prison. The remarkable story of Sherman Williams that you must read to believe. Crimson Cowboy, Peace Between the Lines, is the incredible journey of an NFL star continued road to redemption. You must get this book now at crimsoncowboy.com. crimsoncowboy.com.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you.
online, you can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Okay, so 5 tacos of cheese and a large soda. That's $10,012. Please drive around.
Wait, 10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Viola Davis. Did you know that 1 in 5 kids in America struggle with hunger? Growing up, I was one of those kids. But we can solve this. When we make breakfast happen for kids in our neighborhood, we have the power to end childhood hunger, create bigger, brighter school days, and healthier minds and bodies. Go to hungeriz.org and lend your time or your voice. We're hungry for more.
A message from the Albertsons Companies Foundation and the Entertainment Industry Foundation.
Now it's time to bring it back.
Make an awesome mix of urban.
This is an awesome mix.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela, and we're talking all things stress, burnout, all of this stuff. God, I hope this is helping you all out in some way.
Let us know. Comment and let us know.
Comment. You know what I have not done is I have not given the phone number. If you guys want to call, give us a call at 678-613-5857. You can also text that number if you want to tell us something via, text. I'm going to post that right now, 678-613-5857. Would love to hear your thoughts on anything, but I'm also taking comments on Facebook. Guest is Dr. LaKlieshia Izzard, and she's also known as Dr. Izzy. So definitely check her out. One of the things I was talking about earlier was about my work-life balance and how. So when I think I had the worst work-life balance when I was married, and I don't blame marriage for it by any means at all. But it was definitely a period of my life where I wasn't awake to it. I wasn't aware
Trying to adjust.
Yeah, I was just, I was working on my doctoral. I was working full time. I had 2 kids. I was pregnant at some point in that doctoral program, husband. But I think I still could have maintained work-life balance in all of that. So there are ways, if you have a lot going on, that doesn't automatically mean, well, that work-life balance thing ain't for me. No, there are ways within that busy life, because now I have 3 businesses. I have a full-time job. I have a radio show. I have 2 kids. And I have much more balanced than I ever was in my earlier years. And I think that you have to be forceful about it. You know, you have to say, nope, this is the line, and I'm not crossing it.
Boundaries.
I will put things on my calendar that say it's some random thing, but I know what it is. It's my massage time. See? And and so when somebody calls and say, hey, can I get an appointment with you on Wednesday at 4? No, I got something at that time. And I know so many people who will say, well, I mean,
I'm going to do it.
And they'll do it. Don't do it.
No, that's not boundary setting.
No, it's not.
Boundary setting is important because it's there to protect us.
Yes.
And it's also there to help us to achieve higher heights.
Right.
And so if we do not apply boundaries, we will suffer the cost, whether it is physically or whether it is mentally or whether it is emotionally.
One thing you said earlier, and I said I'm going to come back to it, you were just reminding me, was irritable bowel syndrome.
Yes, IBS.
So yes, I'm going there. So the whole time I was married, constipated, the whole time I was married. I did not know that people could be regular. Like, I forgot that there was a thing called regular. And that was because my whole life I was like, everything was clenched.
Stress.
Everything, yes. I mean, hands, cheeks. Everything clenched. And then it wasn't until I moved past that phase of my life, and again, I'm not blaming it on marriage, but once I realized I have to take care of myself, free-flowing regularity, people.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with IBS at one. Well, I don't know if it was a diagnosis, but I think the doctor said, well, I think this may be what you have. At no point did we ever talk about stress. Problem. I'm telling you, the moment that I transitioned out of marriage and into another phase of my life, everything changed in terms of
change.
Yeah. So,
and it is. There is a connection.
Yeah.
And I think many people need to stay cognizant and aware that whatever pressures or challenges that are going on in their life may very well be the result of what they're going through physically.
Yeah, because I've had, I mean, there's so many different physical problems that rose up in that time of my life. I did not know I had arthritis until that time in my life. You know, I did not know I had this condition called Raynaud's, where your fingers get really cold and numb and they turn white. I didn't know that until that time period. I had hot flashes, and that, you know, people are like, you ain't got no hot flashes, you only 30. No, I really did have hot flashes. You know, and
you know your body.
All of those things ceased when I changed my life.
Yes.
So I'm telling you.
So self-care,
Yeah.
people.
So all y'all telling me, you need to relax, y'all. I don't take no more than it. I'm telling you, somebody wants to make an appointment with me, it is hard pressed to get me to make 2 appointments in one day.
Good for you. Good for you.
I'm like, no, I already got somebody on Tuesday.
Good for you. Good for you.
So trust me, I know what I got this.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change, called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college. My name is Charles, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
In places like the Academy of Creative Coaching. The Academy of Creative Coaching is an international certification program with courses in health and wellness coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, and cultural competency coaching. Courses are online, hybrid, or face-to-face. The Academy of Creative Coaching is empowering coaches to empower the world. Make a positive change in yourself and the world. Go to academyofcreativecoaching.com.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela. And so I've opened up a little bit about my work-life balance secrets. And I'll tell you one other thing. My cousin and I are very, very much connected or committed to work-life balance. So we kind of had both of us had kind of a pretty challenging year last year. And we said, you know what? So that was going into 2017. We said we are going to take a trip every single month. Now, it didn't mean we were going to Italy every month or but a trip, even if it was a road trip, no matter what it was. Trip. Yes. And I think I might have missed 1 month, maybe. And so we made it happen. And I'm telling you, there's some airlines they got flights for $20. So, so you can make it work. That might not be your specific plan, but whatever, make a plan.
Yes. And I think that's critical, what you just said. Make a plan, write it down, allow it to be your goal, and then
okay, go ahead.
make a plan, write it down, and make sure that you follow it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the pieces I think that has helped me maintain work. Whether it's 3 or whether it's 8, and I put them in order based upon priority, and I work through those tasks throughout that day. And so that gives me my time management that I need to have.
I'm laughing because my structure is based on inspiration, which is not good. I do not recommend that. What do I feel inspired to do right now?
You'll be in trouble.
That's bad.
Okay.
Yeah, no. But I love that. I think that's great.
So that works out, and it helps to maintain and it helps to balance, but it also helps me to reach a lot of goals.
That's so good. I love that. Okay, we're going to get into the balance challenge.
Keeping your balance with Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela.
Okay, so as I said last week, this week's balance challenge is to say yes to what you want Did I say last week? I meant last hour. But say yes to what you want and no to what you don't want. So let that pertain to what it needs to pertain to for you. If that means, yes, I am going to take a trip every month. Or, yes, I'm going to take a trip twice this year. Whatever you need to do that works for your life. It may not be a trip. You know, whatever it is, you know. So don't let me dictate what you do. But that is my challenge to you. Did you have something?
Yeah, well, no, I was just thinking, too, about the other part of that, exercise some type of way, you know, for that work-life balance. Because, again, all of that included is going to help to stimulate you. It's going to help you feel good and going to help you to make those choices of saying yes and saying no.
Right.
I think sometimes we'll leave out, you know, that physical piece.
Yes,
but it's so, so important to help motivate you and help push you.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, that's my challenge for you this week. I think you know, you got to make it happen. So so when all these people were like, "Oh, baby, you need to stop working so hard," and I'm like, well, I just got back from the Bahamas,
and
I was on a cruise and
got sick
chilling.
on the cruise.
No, it was 3 weeks after the cruise.
Okay.
So yeah, but I was chilling, you know, and then that week prior, I was just laying around at my parents' house. So maybe laying around is what makes me sick.
Maybe.
But anyway, so no, I just had to, you know, I always chuckle when people say that, but sometimes I'm like, look, y'all, please trust me. I'm so good.
Yeah, having a good schedule, maintaining balance, you know, all of that is so important. And like you said, making sure massages, you know, I incorporate.
Especially if you're, my love language is physical touch. So that helps me out a lot, is getting massages, you know.
And they're good for you. You know, I don't get them as often as most people, but I do make sure that I work them in at least 3 times a year.
Yeah.
So again, it's about what works for you.
Right.
But do know you need to incorporate some of these things.
You got to have strategies
for effective work-life balance.
Yes.
Correct.
So be intentional about, you know, those kinds of strategies. So, you know, we have a little bit of time left, and I want to make sure that we can get your, you know, how do we get in touch with you?
Website, of course, is easily to be accessed, and that is Shekinah, which is SHEKNAHCTS.com.
I totally mispronounced that in the beginning, if that's how you
Shekinah, CTS.com. Again, my books, those are all available on Amazon. The ones we spoke about today was Faith Inspiration Coping Tools, as well as Faith Inspiration Therapy. And then I also have a devotional, which is Positive People Pray, for those individuals that just want to come from a affirmations-based, prayer-based, and just understanding more about how affirmations and biblical scripture and biblical principles can help them to cope with emotional healing as well as mental healing. And so those are all of my contacts, different things that I'm doing. Again, I'm training on different mental health topics, on stress management, on burnout, on compassion fatigue, all of these different areas, grief, just you name it. So definitely reach out to me, any agencies, anyone in need of training related to those areas.
That's
Again,
so
providing supervision, some supervision for counselors to become licensed as well. I do that via the web. Again, work-life balance. Everything doesn't have to be face-to-face. Georgia now terms that telemental health supervision. So those are some of my primary areas. And then, of course, teaching part-time and working as writing in my spare time. So.
Okay, cool. Well, I believe we're going to break. Are we done today? I'm not sure. Break. So we're going to break. Stay with us.
Thank you.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change, called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college. My name is Charles, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Indoor baseball, anyone?
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
JBT 700 Miami Circle 30324. It's not a chain, it's a chain reaction.
Invest $49 a month at a real gym.
For more info, go to facebook.com/Jeans Body Tech.
Probably a good time to wrap up the show because I feel like we conquered everything we set out to conquer today. Now, I'm hoping that this information is helpful for people and that people, because it's a matter of making the decision.
Right.
We've given the information.
Right.
So
definitely being cognizant about this choice because, again, it's going to make a difference in your life if you are willing to maintain work-life balance so that you don't get to the place of being stressed out and
unempathetic.
Yes, having a lack of empathy and getting to a place to where you are burnt out. It's going to be for your benefit.
Yes.
And I think, just recapping and looking at some things, we just need to be mindful of what things will predispose us to stress, to burnout, to compassion fatigue.
Like the ACEs, like racial trauma.
Yes, racial trauma, different things that we may have learned and internalized in childhood that is negative, okay? And that is not necessarily for our benefit. And then making sure that we seek out, opportunities where we can be trained and learn about more effective things, more positive things, more inspirational things. But just being mindful that things that predispose us to stress and burnout, number one is poor health. We are in America. I spoke to an Asian lady one time, and she was letting me know that in Asia, they consider the American diet to be the sad diet. So we have to be mindful of the things that we're eating here in America is not necessarily immune system, a plant-based diet. Baby steps. Focus on calming that mind, doing some things that you need to do so that you can rest.
Yeah, so that means putting the phone down.
Yes, putting the tablet down, putting the laptop down.
Yes.
We didn't
even address that. And
put 50 Shades of Grey down.
Right.
Reading that at night. Okay, so we do need to focus on getting rest because the body has to rejuvenate itself so that it can function. As it's been designed to do so. And then the last piece is making sure your body gets activity. Again, we want to kind of leave that, I'm too busy, I don't have time to work out, I don't have time to go to the gym. Okay, you're going to have to figure out at least 30 minutes a day. That's 200 minutes a week.
And that can be sexual activity too, people.
Well, that is physical activity. It's exercise.
I'm just saying.
So those are some of the areas that if we don't address can predispose us to those
I love
things.
it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Great, good information. And I thank you all for tuning in to the live exchange where we exchange compelling dialogue around love, politics, and intellect. Join us next Thursday from 11 to 1 right here on the Sensation Station, where I'll be joined by LaKlieshia Woodcock, an author, to discuss the purpose in our broken experiences. I'm Dr. Pamela, and remember, love yourself to life, dance confidently in the dark, and dream wildly unrealistic dreams. Have a great week.